Evil opens with a young man named Erik fighting with his friend. Erik brutally beat his pal for no apparent reason. The rest of his companions simply watched. No one attempted to break up the fight out of dread of Erik, who was infamous for getting into fights. Erik is then summoned by the principal, who can no longer tolerate his delinquent behavior. He was instantly expelled from the school. Erik returns home to endure the caning from his stepfather for the violent event that resulted in his expulsion from school. His real mother, who was aware of this, did not care and instead allowed Erik to make errors in the hopes of learning from them. His mother then invited him to meet her friend Gunnar, a lawyer. The lawyer gave Erik his business card and advised him to contact him if he had any problems. Erik, who was perplexed, simply looked at the business card. After Gunnar leaves, his mother expresses her disappointment that he was dismissed from school. Then Erik's mother revealed that she had enrolled him in a new school. His mother enrolls Erik at Street Jansburg, an all-boys boarding school. His mother hopes Erik does not squander this opportunity and maintains his belief that he will not be expelled again, as this is his final chance. Erik nodded, indicating his comprehension. He promised his mother that he would do well in school, graduate, and not disappoint her. Erik arrives to his new school. This time, he wore a uniform and had his hair cut short. His roommate is Pierre, the most intelligent kid in the school. They talk to one another and discover that they got along right away because Pierre was a friendly person. As night fell, Erik and Pierre went to the hall for dinner. Erik then meets a student named Johan, who informs him that each school has its own customs and that each student would be treated differently based on their social level. After Johan said that, the student beside Erik was abruptly summoned by two other students seated at the end of the table, Otto and Gustav. Otto and Gustav were the sons of affluent lords, whereas the students summoned earlier hailed from a modest household. From noble homes, frequently tormented other pupils from ordinary families, such as the one sitting next to Erik earlier. Otto and Gustav dared to act arbitrarily because of their family's strong influence at this school, and they were not frightened of being expelled. Otto and Gustav are both members of the intra-school student organization, where they have the authority to discipline students. Following dinner, Pierre invites Erik to smoke for a while. Erik initially refused, citing his pledge to his mother not to breach the rules. Johan then told them that they would face serious punishment if caught smoking. But Pierre made certain they wouldn't be caught, and Erik was eventually persuaded. Otto and Gustav summoned Erik the next morning at breakfast. They wanted to give Erik a welcome greeting because he was a transfer student who needed to learn about the school's customs. However, he quickly rejected. Because of his reluctance, Johan is the one who must pay the repercussions. Otto wounded Johan's skull, and he was eventually brought to a medical facility. Otto and Gustav are about to play another trick on Erik. The two of them summoned Erik to their headquarters and directed him to wipe up the mound of dirty shoes that had accumulated on the floor. Erik again defied their orders and departed right away. An irritated Gustav then asked Otto what they should do with Erik. Otto didn't seem to be concerned about it just yet. He still appeared relaxed and instructed Gustav to leave Erik first because he was a new student. Erik then told Pierre everything. His roommate's expression suddenly became tense. Pierre then warned Erik not to ignore Otto and Gustav's demands again because students who did would be punished. Erik, who used to be a bully, claimed that he was not scared of them. He also stated that he would never follow all of their orders. Erik and Pierre spend the evening brainstorming nonviolent ways to combat Otto and Gustav's bullying at school. However, it appeared tough to do because the pupils preferred to heed Otto and Gustav's directions rather than receive bruises all over themselves. The next day, Gustav unintentionally runs into Erik. Gustav then instructed Erik to apologize. But Erik declined since he believed he had not hit him. Gustav accidentally hit him. Gustav was enraged and challenged Erik to a battle at a designated location at night. Pierre and Johan then invited Erik to the war arena, which Gustav had mentioned. Pierre revealed that Otto and Gustav had never fought fairly. They would gather their friends and gang up on Erik. That night, Erik intended to accept Gustav's challenge and fight alongside him. However, he eventually gave up and remembered his mother's instruction to always behave well in order to graduate from school. When Pierre returned to the room, he invited his companion to smoke to relieve exhaustion. Otto and Gustav had spent a long time on the war ring waiting for Erik. But because Erik never showed up, Otto thought he was too cowardly and called him a rat, to which his followers cheered. The next day, Otto lists out the names of students who frequently receive punishment and defy commands from members of the intra-school student group. one of them is Erik. After Erik one of them is Erik. After Erik appeared in court, Otto, the student council president, charged him with a full month's incarceration and ordered him to dig a 1-meter deep trench around the school area. Erik digs trenches until late, so he must eat alone in the hall because his labor is completed after dinner. While Erik was dining alone, a canteen staff called Marja approached him. Marja, who appears interested in Erik, claims that he reminds her of her brother. Marja then stated that Erik's stance was similar to that of his brother, and that they both refused to surrender to the arbitrariness in front of their eyes. As is customary, Erik frequently smokes briefly after eating. Marja appeared unexpectedly when he was smoking alone. Marja informs Erik that smoking is bad for his health and expresses concern about the scent of Erik's breath. Marja kissed and held him tightly. In fact, Erik and Marja are aware that the school severely prohibits students from having romantic connections with schoolworkers. The punishment is unrelenting. They will be expelled from the employee will be terminated immediately. However, Erik and Marja appear to disregard the restrictions that night. Erik returned home for the Christmas holidays. His mother greets him, but not his stepfather. His stepfather quickly questioned why he received so many sanctions, including being suspended. Erik responded honestly. He had disregarded the orders of a pupil, who turned out to be the son of a noble and important figure of the school. His stepfather even said that a noble's son should be honored and obeyed. Erik's stepfather canes him again since his report cards are poor and he is subjected to a lot of school discipline. His mother, knowing her child's anguish, simply let it go. Erik has returned to school after his Christmas break. Erik rushed to see Marja since he missed her. Erik and Marja then release their longing under the moonlight, fondling each other. Knowing Erik has returned to school, Otto and Gustav concoct another strategy to trick him. This time, they plan to spray dirt when Erik is sleeping. Naturally, their ideas were always successful. Erik and Pierre awoke quickly and cleared their chamber of the dirt Otto had splattered. But Erik didn't stay silent. He planned to avenge Otto and Gustav's misdeeds. He collected the dirt fragments and crept into Otto's chamber, splashing the dirt when Otto was dead asleep. Erik intentionally chirps loudly in the dining hall the next day, so that all of the pupils can hear. He asked, "You guys smell this awful poop?" Then he sniffed around, eventually halting in front of Otto, who was having his breakfast. Erik then informs everyone that Otto is responsible for the scent of dirt. Hearing this, Otto immediately became upset because Erik dared to mock him. He punched Erik in the face till he was battered. But Erik still didn't retaliate to Otto's punch since he promised his mother. Knowing this, Marja immediately told Otto to halt. Unable to restrain Erik, Otto and Gustav shift their focus. They are now pursuing Pierre, Erik's roommate and only friend at this institution. Otto called Pierre in the dining hall. But Pierre declined since he believed he had done nothing wrong with Otto. Otto was not at his wits' end. He then challenges Pierre to a fight after the last lesson, and if he does not appear, Otto threatens to punish him. Otto and Gustav purposefully want Pierre to irritate Erik. Erik wouldn't stand by and watch his best friend be ganged up on by Otto and his minions. Following that, they would band together against Erik, and no more pupils would defy Otto and Gustav's orders. That evening, Pierre is compelled to accept Otto's challenge. The teenager had arrived on the battlefield alone, while Otto and Gustav were encircled by their followers. Pierre attempted to fight Otto, but their physical postures are very different. Otto delivered a couple mild strikes to Pierre, who collapsed to the ground. Erik's location is unknown. Despite the fact that his best friend was wincing in pain from being the buttocks of Otto and his goons, Erik had just arrived when Pierre had completely collapsed and was powerless to intervene because time had run out. Erik then took Pierre into the room and treated his injuries. He then let Pierre relax and exited the room. He meets Marja and they make love until the morning. Erik returned to his room that morning, concerned about Pierre's condition. To Erik's amazement, his room was empty and Pierre had already left. Pierre even took his possessions with him, indicating that he would not attend school again. Pierre merely left a letter apologizing for his unexpected departure. Pierre stated that Erik was a dear friend of his and told him not to give up and to continue fighting Otto and his henchmen's arbitrariness in order to put an end to the injustices that occur frequently at this institution. Erik got up and showed his true identity. He was determined to avenge Otto and his thugs for their mistreatment of his friend and other classmates. He approaches Gustav in the dining hall and challenges him to a battle in the arena in an hour. Erik, who is alone, confronts Gustav and von Schenken, both of whom have greater and stronger postures than him. But they simply talked large and depended on their parents. Erik, who was also a delinquent, was able to defeat them without any effort. Erik then threatens Otto, who is shocked that he has defeated his most formidable minions. Erik informs Otto that he is his next target. However, before responding to Otto, Erik goes to the school kitchen to find Marja. A female colleague informs Erik that Marja has left school because she has been sacked. She then delivered a letter from Marja to him. Erik was upset by Marja's sudden departure, as was Pierre. One of Otto's henchmen discovers Erik receiving a letter from a female school employee. He promptly reported it to Otto. He then raided Erik's chamber and instructed his henchmen to check his belongings. They then discovered a letter from Marja. Otto then reads it and discovers that Erik and Marja are having a covert affair. Obviously, Otto used the letter to expel Erik from school. He quickly delivered the evidence of the significant offense to the principal. The principal summoned Erik, who immediately expelled him from school for committing a significant infraction similar to Marja's. Erik accepts his penalty cheerfully. However, he requested that the principal return the letter from Marja, because it was his only remembrance of her. The principal declined and then placed it in a drawer. Erik then intends to avenge Otto for all of his tragedies while in Street Jansburg. After all, he's been expelled from school, so he could do whatever he pleased with Otto. He then searches for Otto and discovers him walking alone in the woods. He quickly confronted Otto and threatened him with a stick. He made Otto kneel down. Otto unexpectedly obeyed his commands. Otto, who appeared terrified, then promised Erik $10,000 so that he would not kill him. Erik declined. When Erik is about to attack Otto, he yells out in anguish, begs Erik to save his life, and then vomits. Erik cupped Otto's face and promised not to kill him since he was not like Otto, who liked to oppress up. Then he remembered Gunnar telling Erik to contact him if there was a problem at school. Erik quickly called Gunnar, and the lawyer arrived in Street Jansburg shortly thereafter. After alerting Gunnar about his dilemma, Erik approached the principal, who was drinking with the teaching staff in his room. Erik begs not to be expelled from school and that the letter from Marja be returned to him. The principal first refuses, but Gunnar enters the meeting and threatens to publish the case in bullying culture among the children, after which the principal and other school staff members leave him alone. The principal has no alternative but to approve Erik's wishes and abolish the Otto-led student council. Long story short, Erik is extremely thankful to Gunnar for allowing him to return to school and overturn Otto and his henchmen's totalitarian authority. Erik spends his days at school peacefully until the day he graduates. His mother is extremely proud and pleased with all of her son's accomplishments during his time at Street Jansburg. Even still, Erik's stepfather is still upset since he receives poor results on attitude assessments at school. As his stepfather begins to flog him, Erik fights back and declares that this is the last time violence will occur in this house. Erik then kicked him out of the house. Erik eventually met Pierre, who was headed to Geneva to finish his schooling.